Welcome to Get Over It, the consciousness transforming podcast for exceptional 21st century living. Folks, we have a very intriguing show today. We're going to be speaking with Bob Frizzell, and his latest book is Catching the Ascension Wave. There we go. Everything you need to know about the coming great awakening. And, folks, you would think that, ascension is all about being ethereal, growing, and it is. However, Bob provides a lot of information that you need to clear out the blockages that we have so that we can ascend. The book is very, very interesting. And after you listen to this podcast, and we've touched on many different subjects, go get the book because he gives a lot of details that are extremely eye-opening. Now, the information shared on Get Over It uses intuitive and pragmatic insight to help you shift your consciousness to break through the blocks and release energy that is no longer needed. Yes, we're going to help you let go of the BS that's been holding you back. But you guys know I always ask, are you truly ready to? And by the way, folks, BS is belief system. Bit about me for my new listeners: intuitive since birth. I'm a third-generation intuitive with over 3 decades of experience supporting people to break through the blocks along their path. I'm a strategist for personal and professional transformation, revealing cutting-edge information that enables you to prosper and thrive. I spent 25 successful years in corporate America as an executive sales professional, and I'm the founder of Healing Visions Ministries and the Northern California Children's Education Network, a 501c3 nonprofit. I provide consultations and healings in all areas of life that heal the mind-body-spirit connection, allowing you to live your very best life. Now, my clients tell me that I keep it real while providing them with accurate information to assist them along their journey as a spirit living a human existence. But they also say, if you really don't want to know, don't ask Monique. My background includes a doctorate in metaphysics, Reiki master teacher, ordained minister, and clinical hypnotherapist. So whether you are stressed, depressed, or possessed, I can help. To find out more about me and the services I offer, go to my website, that's MoniqueChapman.com, and I invite you to like and follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn. My guest today, Bob Frizzell, is the founder of the Breath Academy technique and has been a teacher of breath work for more than 35 years. He is the author of several books, including the bestseller, Nothing in This Book is True, but it's exactly how things are. He lives in Sonoma, California, and you can check him out at his website, and that's bobfrizzell.com, BOBFRISSELL.com. Welcome, Bob.
Hey, hi, Monique. I'm glad to be here, and thanks so much for having me. So let's have some fun. Let's go.
Yeah, that's great fun. I really enjoyed the book, and I was really surprised, when your publicist contacted me. I thought it would be another book on Ascension, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll have them on. And then once I opened the book and read it, I'm like, wow, this really goes deep. So you take people on a journey that is much needed beforehand, and that's breaking through our blocks so that we can connect with our higher self. Why is that so important?
Why is that so important? It's I would make the distinction between living life in a black and white world relative to living life in a living color world. In my book, I actually divided it into two halves. The first half is about lifting the veil. I love that. And the second half I call awakening in the illusion. And in the very first chapter, in the second half, I talk about how if you go way back in the day when the universe was first created, there was no veiling. And so all the beings on all the planets were in perfect awareness of the fact that they were a perfectly functioning hologram of the one infinite creator, all of it moving through them. Uh, and people were in a continual state of bliss. Now, you would think that that would be just fantastic, and we want more of that, but it wasn't. The universe was not working because people were not motivated to get off their duffs and to learn and to grow and to create, and nobody was ascending, and that's
Mhm.
really the name of the game right there. Now, this is not me just making this stuff up, although it sounds like I could have made it up, but I didn't. This came from an extremely relevant document called the Law of One, material that I've been researching ever since the early 1990s, and just decided to, in this book, put that all together. So this is
Mhm.
straight out of the Law of One, and we can get down to where the Law of One came from in a bit. But before we do that, what it was decided back in the early days was to put a veiling over the people, and as a result, they would have virtually no awareness that they were anything other than a single entity looking out at a world through which they didn't really feel much of any of a connection. Well,
Mhm.
another way of looking at that is that we, when we were living in the state of oneness, even though we were in total bliss, we were just lying around like we were entitled, like a bunch of spoiled rich kids, no incentive to learn or to gain. But
Mhm.
once the veiling was placed over, in fact, the universe, as strange as it sounds, it started to work because creativity was discovered and inspiration was discovered, and music and dance and art and a lot of good things like that began to show up, and people began to ascend again. But that what I really want to, the point I really want to make with this, Monique, is that one way, I think a very useful way of looking at the change that was made way back in the early days of the universe was that when we were in total total awareness of our oneness to all of life everywhere. We
Mhm.
were living out of our heart-based connection to source, our higher self, where everything is, when it's open, just comes, just comes through us. Joyfulness and creativity and inner peace and unconditional, all the goodies in life. Well, we made the shift when the veiling was placed over from our heartfelt oneness to all that is, to our mind, and we became our mind. Now, what does that mean? Well, mind does not connect the dots to see wholeness. It looks out at a world, it perceives itself, and it is just that we are separate and cut off from it, and like that. And furthermore, the mind is polarized, meaning it's in a continual state of judgment. Now, you just imagine you and I individually and collectively are very good at judging. If another person or if a situation does not measure up to the idealized standard that's contained in our mind, we very much have a tendency to judge it or to
Right.
make it wrong.
Mhm.
Well, you stop and think of the number of times we've done that. And every time we do, there's the thought, the conceptual component. This person or this situation really is bad and wrong. And then we tend to really believe our make wrong and oftentimes infuse it with a good deal of emotional charge. And so what that instantly generates is an instantly generated pattern of energy. You could call it a physical sensation or very simply a feeling in the body. Now, because the original thought, this person really is bad and wrong, and I really believe my make wrong here,
Mhm.
the instantly generated feeling can only be an unpleasant feeling. Well, you and I are quite committed, is individually and collectively. We want to feel good. And in
right?
the absence of any conscious integrative technique, what we do is about all that's available to us, and then find just that is looking for ways to distance ourselves from the unpleasant feelings. Uh, Distraction, medication in various forms, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera. You know, we all are pretty well versed on that.
Right.
But the problem is that it 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 lives in the body in stuck in the form of stuck energy. And every judgment, every make wrong has its, if you will, packet of stuck energy associated with it that we distance ourselves from feeling. That stuff gets stored in the body. And if we don't learn how to interact with it consciously, it starts interacting with us in very undesirable ways. What it is the unresolved emotional trauma that to some degree everybody went through childhood and whatever. It's just the process of growing up in a mind-based culture that's in a continual state of judgment.
Uh-huh.
So we continue to act that out until or unless we become aware enough to learn how to consciously transmute that energy. Now, the point being here, Monique, is that what that does, it keeps us perfectly trapped in our minds. And in so doing, because the mind does not know the present moment, it keeps us out of the present moment. And it's only in the present moment that your heartfelt connection to source, your higher self, is available to you. And so we go through life not knowing, and not knowing that we don't know for the most part, that we're living life conceptually. We're not living it experientially. We're not living out of the present moment. The mind sees the present through the eyes of the unresolved emotional issues from the past. And
Right.
we think that's life. Well, it isn't. There is a great awakening, I make the case for it, that's going on today, and that is the direct result of an enormous infusion of higher dimensional energy, the galactic superwave, as I like to call it. And it's
Uh-huh.
dramatically raising the vibratory rate of the planet and everybody on it. And so if we can learn to go with the dramatic increase of vibratory energy and catch the wave, we can move out in ways that I don't believe were even possible as little as 5, 10, 20 years ago. But if we don't, if we hold on and resist, well, it's going to be a very rough ride indeed. So that's where I would begin with all of this stuff.
Okay. Well, it's interesting. You said that, we need to kind of like release and move forward. But if you listen to people that are pontificating on TV, you hear about, oh, we need to go back to the 50s because everything was perfect back then. And it was just the way, the Leave It to Beaver, the Cleavers, the
Yeah.
whomevers, and by the way, they were all white. But anyway, and also at that time, there was a very strong UFO alien contact that was hidden from us. So how do those two intertwined? Were they hiding the UFO and alien contact from us to put us more in of an illusion of we're living the great life?
Great questions. Yeah, well, let's see if we can unpack that a little bit. But before I do, I think it would be useful to just ask and address the question about the nature of ascension itself. And the very simple question is it real? And if so, what the heck is it? And my answer in one word is yes, it is real. It is real, not Israel, the country. Yeah, okay. Anyway, what I found is that there's references to ascension in at least 35 different civilizations, and you can call it it's in their religious myths or whatever you want to call it. But in addition to the prophecies of Jesus, which happens to be consistent with that of at least 34 other cultures, because you're going to find the same prophecies appearing in the Quran, the Old Testament. The Native Americans have it, and I talk about that in my book. The Celtics and the Druids have it. The Hindu scriptures, very similar. They talk about the Samvarta fire at the end of a cycle. And so if ascension is real, then what is the issue here? What is it all about? Well, now let's just take a moment and dive into the question that you asked, and that is that if we go back to the 1950s. Yeah, stress-free living. Well, it depends on who you were. If you were President Eisenhower, it wasn't so stress-free. but but he had to deal with things that he could not talk to the public about. But in my book, I have an entire chapter that addresses this, and it's called Contact in the Desert. And the reason it's called that is because there was a Canadian, let's just call him a scientist. His name is W.B. Smith, and he was actually hired, if you will, by the Canadian government to get out there and research the UFO phenomenon, because it was really a big happening back in the 1950s, really a big deal. And so he quickly realized that maybe the best thing to do would be to see if he could find some actual contactees and see what they had to say. And a really good place to look was that it was in Joshua Tree, California, because back in the 50s, they would hold an annual UFO conference that attracted typically around 5,000 people, many of whom claimed to be contactees. So Smith went there and had conversations with these people and came away with, well, this is really interesting, but is it real? He didn't know. So in order to attempt to solve that is it real or not problem, what he did is he devised a 100-part questionnaire. And if you were a contactee, if you were who you said you were, you would answer it one way. And if you weren't, well, it'd be kind of tough to fake it. So that told him a lot. And then he could begin to trust the message and to get the common theme that was flowing through this. And what they were all saying is really the same thing. They're saying what I just said, that there's going to be an enormous infusion of higher vibratory energy coming into the solar system. And what it will do is it's going to act as a catalyst, causing people to wake up and to, I mean, literally, remember, shed enough baggage so you can remember, create enough presence to just begin to remember who you really are and begin to reclaim your own powers, which is available, when you are connected to source. So, basically they were saying this, that there's a transformation that we have to make. We have to learn how to move with these changes, and in so doing, get the benefit from it. Common denominator throughout all of these messages. Now, Smith also made contact with a guy by the name of George Hunt Williamson, who was a big name back in the day. He was an author, and probably his best book out there is one published in 1959. It's called Road in the Sky. And I looked at that book and I got some really great information from it. Williamson was taking quotes out of the Bible, and I'm so glad he did, because I'm not a student of the Bible, but I sure put those quotes in the book, because what they're talking about is they're detailing the ascension. And so what is the ascension? What it's detailing is literally the fact that a third dimensional planet at a certain point in its life cycle, it's time to wake up, to grow up, and to graduate into a higher vibratory universe, higher vibratory rate that is consistent with with unity consciousness, unconditional love, and creativity, and inspiration, and joyfulness, and inner peace, all the goodies in life, And so this is all what they're talking about, and the Bible just spells it out. So important to know that straight out of the Bible, they call it the quickening spirit, that flesh and blood cannot make it through, that our bodies have to be transformed into light bodies in order to enter into, what they would call the kingdom of heaven. What we're calling here is the fourth dimension. Kingdom of heaven, fourth dimension. Well, the law of one says that the fourth dimension is a world that is at least 100 times more harmonious in every possible way than even our very best moments here in third dimensional life. That sounds a bit like the kingdom of heaven to me.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does. Excuse me. I'm sorry about that. You said earlier that you were going to delve a little bit deeper into the law of one. Is there anything else that you haven't shared with us yet that you would like to share?
we'd need a week in order to get everything out of the law of
Great.
one.
Well, highlights.
But here's, I think, an important point or two is, who is it and where does it come from? Well, in order to answer that, you have to look back to our neighbor Venus, and you have to go back 2.6 billion years. Yes, I said that, 2.6 billion years, because this is when Venus went through their ascension and went from third dimension to fourth dimension. And I think it would be good to get into the details of that, but first to take a look at where the law of one comes from. And the first law of one book I found was called The Raw Material by Ra. And then it says a humble messenger of the law of one. But Ra is just a name for this, what we've come to know as the ancient builder race. They are now six-dimensional beings. And so therefore, Ra actually is the ancient builder race. So if you can imagine, this is information that has been around for 2.6 billion years. They tried their best to introduce it to us back in the 18th dynasty during Akhenaten's second 12-year mystery school. But as they said, with limited success. And what that means, to unpack that a little bit, is that this was the second of two 12-year mystery schools back around 1355 BC, led by Akhenaten. And well, the people within the school loved Akhenaten. And they were the ones who had success, if you will, with the law of one. Everybody else hated Akhenaten because he just came in and changed everything. He said there's only one spirit moving through all life. You just need to learn to breathe in a certain way and everything's going to be fine, et cetera, et cetera. And, the priests and everybody else, they're freaking out and going, what? Who is this quack? And, and so this is what the law of one meant when they said it was meant with limited success. Well, it was reintroduced in the early 1980s, and I'm so glad it was. And it's available either in the set of books or just go online, lawofone.org, and it's all there. And so if you'd like, we can get into what they say about ascension and why a planet does go through that you might say in its growth process.
Yes, let's do that, because so many people have a completely different idea of what ascension is.
Yeah, I know, right. Well, before we go there, you could say that one useful definition of ascension is making the journey back from the reactive mind that lives life conceptually back to the living presence, the heartfelt presence of our connection to source, our higher self. That's where ascension begins, right there. Without that, it would be a very, very rough ride for people. So that's point number one. But in the law of one, they say that typically they look at 325,920 year cycles, which also happens to be the length of the precession of the equinoxes. And yes, they are tied to each other. But and let's just call them 25,000 year cycles to just round it off. They say that on a typical third dimensional planet, at the end of the first 25,000 year cycle, that about 40% of the population will ascend. At the end of the second 25,000 year cycle, they say that the vast majority of those who were left behind will ascend. And then they say at the end of the third 25,000 year cycle, it's kind of like a mop-up job. The very few who didn't make it will all make it through this time. And then they go on to say that the planet becomes unuseful for third dimensional life through what they call inconvenience. And that's where there's massive earth changes and solar flares, where typically the planet gets buried under 40 to 400 feet of rock. And you wouldn't want to be around when that's going on, and not to worry because nobody is around when it's going on. If you made it into the fourth dimension, life, it's a beautiful world. It's just a higher wavelength, a shorter wavelength rather, higher frequency, much higher vibratory world, a world of unity. And so, you'll be able to not only live your life and walk around, but you'll learn to, how does it say, to float. That's not it. Oh, well, we'll let that go. We learn what life is really all about. Let's put it that way. Now, that's what typically happens on third dimensional planets. But if we look at planet Earth, at the end of the first 25,000 year cycle, nobody ascended. 40% normally ascend in our planet. Nobody did. What's going on here? At the end of the second 25,000 year cycle, only 157 made it through into the fourth dimension, all of whom stayed with the Earth and became ascended masters. Now, here we are at the end of the third cycle. And the great question is, what's going to happen this time around? And so that's what, it's just a fascinating discussion. And I spend really a great part of the book just taking a deep dive look into that, into how I think that, to really cut to the quick, that what the game is really all about is us individually and collectively waking up enough to raise our vibratory rate, in turn raising the vibratory rate of the planet so it becomes harmonious with the higher vibratory energy that's coming in this super galactic wave. And in so doing, what we're doing is creating the critical mass that will allow for the ascension of the planet. Critical mass, very, very much tied, if you will, to the 100th monkey theory, which I think that in some degree, most people have at least heard that.
Right.
So, so to really cut to the quick, I make the case for us what it takes to be on the optimal timeline, what it takes to create critical mass. And, I did some deep digging research in order to dig all that out, because I'm just so excited and fascinated by it myself. And I came to the conclusion that we most likely are on the optimal timeline, where, yeah, maybe not everybody's going to make it through, but perhaps a whole lot more than you thought. And the rest who were not ascension ready, if there are any, not to worry, because they are taken to another third dimensional planet where they will be given enough incarnations to work through their karma so that they too can become ascension ready. And all of that comes not only from the law of one, but also from insiders and whistleblowers and lots of good people that I was able to get some great information from.
Okay. Well, Bob, everything you say sounds absolutely wonderful and it resonates as true. However, right now in the world, it seems to be a lot of negative, or at least what we perceive as negativity going on, whether it's, the wars or the changes in weather or closed-minded people ruling the world. And in fact, when I was reading the book, you talked about 3 cities that rule the world. And I was like, huh? I mean, I'd heard this before, but I didn't necessarily, I don't know, maybe buy into it. The awareness was there, but I didn't dig deeper. So could you go into a little bit about the negativity or what we perceive as negativity going on right now, and talk about 3 cities?
I'll speak of it in terms that are relevant to us. If you really, I put an entire chapter in the book called "The Dark Side," where I dug into, just it's about lifting the veil to the fact that we've been controlled for a long time from the shadows, from the puppet masters that have remained hidden for so long. But with the influx of higher vibratory energy, their cover is being blown and they're being brought out into the open. Now, I don't really want to dig any deeper into that, but what I do want to say is that we're going through what I like to call a dark night of the soul, where it is absolutely true that the darkness is coming to the surface. And so what it's doing is it's creating some uneasiness for a lot of people on the planet. But here again, It's just a question of learning how to ride with the wave, learning how to harmonize, literally, as I see it, learning how to transmute life detracting energy into life enhancing energy so you can discover presence. And only out of presence can you begin to relate on an experiential level to your true nature and experience it and live it. But the dark night of the soul is such that even though it's a very bumpy ride for many people, in that we all are going to be challenged, these are accelerated times. We don't have lifetimes anymore to work through our karma if we want to become ascension ready. We're being given the opportunity to work literally through lifetimes of karma so we can become ascension ready. And again, it's a question of learning how to be harmonious with the influx of higher dimensional energy that's coming in. So yeah, the dark night of the soul, and what it's doing is creating a displacement process. The displacement process is that all our unresolved business individually, not all of it at once, but for some people it might seem that way, our unresolved emotional trauma, ranging back to childhood and like that. That we've been, doing our best to try and distance ourselves from feeling and all of that. And like I suggested earlier, if you don't know how to consciously deal with that, it's going to start dealing with you in some rather unpleasant ways. So if you can develop your innate ability to transmute that into life-enhancing energy, now you can get on with it. And so you can learn how to, well, there's a Chinese proverb that says crisis, in the seed of every crisis, what is it? In every crisis lies the seed of opportunity. I like to, crisis and opportunity sit side by side. So what are you going to choose, crisis or opportunity? And that's the opportunity that's available for us. So in other words, instead of being stopped by our challenges, we learn to become empowered by them. And in so doing, we're able to move out and dramatically raise the vibratory rate of the planet and create the conditions necessary to allow the critical mass to come forth. It's all contained within each and every one of us. We are at the end of the cycle, and people are waking up in droves, and many more are, their turn is coming. And so I do feel that it's all progressing just exactly as it should. Amplified by the fact that the law of one states very, very clearly that the earth is supposed to look like the train is coming off the tracks, like it's being derailed. That's the way it's supposed to look, because the darkness has to come to the surface before it can be transmuted into the light, both individually and collectively.
With so much darkness on the surface, how do we transmute that energy? I mean, it seems like it's overwhelming at times and that the light just doesn't have an opportunity.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And to answer that, I devoted the entire second half of my book. The second half I call Awakening in the Illusion, where I go through and I give the exact details of how not only, just what do I mean by stuck energy, unresolved emotional trauma, and, I just unpack every bit of it and step by step show you that you have an innate ability to take what had been life detracting energy, all that stuck energy. Like I say, if you don't learn how to deal with it consciously, it starts dealing with you. The unresolved emotional stuff, the resentment, the anger, the depression, the whatever it's devolved into starts coming to the surface in droves, and you're just, running around like a headless chicken when that's activated. The other way it starts dealing with you in unpleasant ways is all sorts of unpleasant physical symptoms. Initially aches and pains and stress, and in its more advanced state, arthritis and things that you'd really rather not have. So ultimately, we, in these accelerated times, need to learn how to deal with that, or you can be certain it's going to deal with us. And I spend the entire second half of the book just going into step by step. This is exactly how you do it, because I
Okay.
want to bring as many friends with me as I can.
Of course, of course. In your book, you mentioned Daniel Brinkley, and for those who don't know, he's been struck by lightning 4 times, and yes, he's still alive. He's been a guest
Yeah.
on the show a few times. So Has he gotten to the point where I don't know how to say this. It's almost like he ascended, but he's still here because he survived what would normally take other people out 4 times?
Well, yeah, I mean, 4 near-death experiences in the first one. And by the way, he wrote his book. It's called Saved by the Light. It's
Mhm.
kind of gotten around. The last time I checked, it had sold about 22 million copies. Hello, that's quite a few books.
Yep.
So Daniel Brinkley, I'm glad to hear you've had him on. He's a great guy. He was gone in his first near-death experience for a total of 28 minutes. Doesn't sound like much, but it was a lifetime to him, where he went through the panoramic life review, where he realized that everything that had ever happened in his life was played back to him with nothing missing, including absolutely what it was like for the people on the other side of it. And Daniel Brinkley was anything but a harmonious individual before he died the first time. In school, he was a terrible student. He set what has to be all-time records for every school everywhere for the number of demerits he received and getting kicked out of school and just being an absolutely terrible student. And he wasn't a much better person. He became an assassin in Vietnam, and he got to experience exactly what it was like, to have killed these people from the viewpoint of the family members. And everything else he reported in that 28 minutes is just absolutely fascinating. And I put a lot of it in my book. Uh, uh, and uh, and so he came back a totally transformed person, because he knows, number one, with absolute certainty, that there is no death. The spirit always lives forever. It just goes through a transition, and that he experienced it going into the afterlife. I'm sure he's looking forward to experience it going in, turning his body into a light body and moving into the higher vibratory rate of the fourth dimension. So there's a lot more that we could say about Daniel Brinkley and how that relates. And if we have time, I'm not sure what our time frame is here, but would it be okay to briefly throw down another point or
Go
two?
for it. Go for it.
Okay, I'll see what I can do. Uh, I mentioned in the ancient mystery schools, the mystery school that I really connected with was Akhenaten's mystery school, held back for 12 years in around 1355 BC, and it was called the Law of One. Now, nothing in this book is true, but it's exactly how things are. I put a whole chapter on that, detailing certain aspects of that mystery school through a series of geometrical drawings, using
Mhm.
sacred geometry to show the absolute unity of all life everywhere. But then I started digging into the Law of One, and I began realizing on a much deeper level what was going on there, and began to realize that that what they were doing was really getting a true bead on who they really were, and via all the incarnations they've come into in this lifetime. And what happened in the school was that the Egyptians perceived and identified eight completely different and separate personalities, and that these eight together just make up the entire personality complex of the spirit that first came here. We all go through this evidently, and that we first go through each of the eight, and then we tend to pick a dominant one male and one female. And in Akhenaten's school, what they were doing, considering that in the Michael Newton afterlife books, Michael Newton makes the point that we really only have, at the very most, maybe 15 to 20% of the soul's energy available to us in any one lifetime. The rest of us is in the higher realms. So, there's about 80% or so of us that we don't even know anything about. Uh,
Right.
this is what the Egyptians were doing back in Akhenaten's mystery school. They were getting to know each other. And these 8 different personalities, at the end of 12 years, they would have what you might call a conference. And in so doing, they were able to establish wholeness and wisdom, and reconnect with all of the severed aspects of themselves, so that and we're talking about the higher self version of themselves that was just, had been sitting many lifetimes, just patiently waiting, you might say, waiting for us to advance enough to fully really connect. And this is what the Egyptians were doing, all of which was in preparation for the final initiation in the king's chamber, where they had, at the very least, a synthetic experience of ascension. But I found that just absolutely fascinating how, when you begin to dig in and get a beat on what was going on back in those in that school, uh, it was pretty good.
It does, and it's amazing how far away we've gotten from that, but we're coming back. We're
We're
opening
coming
up
back.
again.
Absolutely. Yes, we
Yeah.
are. And we're living in extremely accelerated times. And uh, as you learn to catch the wave, learn to catch the ride, I say that it's a great time to be alive. There's just, yeah, so much going on right now. And fasten your seatbelt because, as you well pointed out, the ride can get a little rough at times, but
Mhm.
that's the nature of it. You got to bring the darkness up. It can't be transmuted into the light until you do. But when you do, it's just a universal principle. It's a universal law. Really as simple as you walking into a completely darkened room where you can't see a thing. But the moment you flip on the light switch, there's no more darkness. It gets transmuted into the light, you could say.
Mhm.
So when we shine the light of our conscious awareness on the individual and collective darkness, then it gets transmuted into the light of our conscious awareness. Because our conscious awareness is our connection to source, our connection to all that is. And that's where we have totally our innate ability to transmute energy into life enhancing energy. It's contained in everybody. And it's just a matter enough of waking up enough so that we can remember. And really, I like to just think that my book is just one huge wake up call, and uh, and I had a
Um,
whole lot of fun writing it too.
yeah, well, I think it is a great big wake up call if one is willing to sit and read and then digest what they're reading. So I thank you for writing it. Now, when we go to your website, bobfrizzell.com, what are we going to find there?
Well, you're going to find out more information about me, a lot more about what I do and everything. But really, what I would encourage people to is, if you're at all inspired by this interview this morning, and I hope you are, that what I prefer is that people just order the book first. And if and only if the book really resonates with you on a very deep level, and I do believe it will, because the constant feedback I'm getting is that people are telling me once I picked it up, I couldn't put it down. And
Mhm.
and that's my intention in writing it, because what I'm writing about is information that is so interesting to me, so fascinating to me, resonates with me on a very deep level, that I just want to, share that message with as many people as I can. So I feel that the best way to get to know me is to get a hold of a copy of the book. And then if it does resonate with you on a deep level, then check me out on my website if you want to, explore and look further. But I think the book is really the place to start. And that's my suggestion.
Okay, well, you do offer though a free offering on your website, so tell the folks about that. That could
Well,
be
I
one
don't really
step, the
want to
next
talk
step after
about that
the.
yet.
Oh, okay, well,
Be-
we'll leave that alone.
Yeah, because not, yeah, I'll just give you a reason why I think it'd be a good idea. Because I'm putting a new prerequisite. Please have read at least one of my books before, so that we can, so that you're properly prepared. Yes, I
Yeah,
do
the
offer
same
30-minute
energy.
free consultations, but
Mhm.
I want to uh, uh, I don't want to have to introduce this stuff to people in 30 minutes, because that's
Right.
all we'd be. So I want people to be up to speed enough by having read at least one of my books. And then I'm absolutely, totally, totally willing to talk to people. Fair enough?
Okay. That is absolutely positively fair. Our time has gone so quickly. I really enjoyed talking with you. Could you leave a pearl of wisdom for the audience today?
A pearl?
Well,
Well,
I'm just
okay.
asking for one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, well, what I want to say is that really to cut to the quick, to the bottom line and what the shift is all about. It's moving out of our reactive mind, which only knows life conceptually, doesn't know the present moment, doesn't connect the dots, doesn't see wholeness, and leaves you living life conceptually. It's like living in a black and white world. And what we have contained within us, and due to the quickening of the energy, it's more possible than ever before to catch the ride and to make the shift from your reactive mind into the heartfelt presence of your higher self, your connection to source. And in so doing, just make the shift from black and white to a world in living color. Helen Keller said, life is either an exciting adventure or it's nothing. And that's exactly what she meant. And I would submit that life becomes an exciting adventure once you make that shift.
Okay, when you were saying that, it reminded me of that movie on TV, Pleasantville, where it started out black and white and everybody was kind of dull and drab. And then by the end, when they were seeing the color, people truly came to life.
I love that movie. I referred to it as the book.
Yes, you do. Well, Bob, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your extensive knowledge with us today. I greatly appreciate it.
Well, Monique, it's my pleasure. And thanks so much for having me on and giving me the opportunity. And I really enjoyed spending time with you and talking with you. And I hope that, I do hope that we've covered some useful ground here.
We most definitely have. And to the audience, I thank you. I am always honored and I appreciate your time and attention. And for everyone, please remember that the most important choice that you can make is what you choose to make important. Consider making the masterful choice of catching the ascension wave. Abundant blessings, light, and love to all. Agape.
Feeling the chilled vibe of summer and tasting the crisp, cold enjoyment of Carlsberg? Probably. Carlsberg. Probably the best beer in the world. Always drink responsibly. Get the facts. Be drink aware. Visit drinkaware.ie.